Hi there, I'm Cahira O'Donnell, and of all things, I'm a romantic novelist. I have my two latest books out are The Long Dark Night, which is the first in the series of the Seven Sisters, and then the second book I have out is the Chalice of Cahira, and it is the first in the series of the Daguerreonian Chronicles. Both of them are esoteric novels with psychic heroines. One takes place in outer space, and the other one is more of a military combat novel. So they're very different, and at the same time they have a lot in common. I'm often asked, whatever possessed me to write novels like this? And I actually, quite frankly, never had planned on being published with them. I just enjoy writing, and I would sit up at night and just write, because these stories would come to me. Sometimes I would dream about them, and I just started writing them down. And I got into the romantic genre because my stepfather, of all people, used to love romance, and he would save all his books and bring them to me by the wine case full. I was a young mother and didn't have enough money to buy my own books, so I just read what he brought, and I actually fell in love with the genre. And that's how it all got started. Cahira is a pen name, and in my other life, I'm actually a published author in the self-help esoteric realm, and alternative science. So it was kind of strange for me to branch out and look at the romantic field. I wouldn't have gone there at all, except just writing for myself, except some of my friends started reading what I was writing and said, "You've got to publish these." So I did, and they've been very well received. I've written probably 25 different books that are in the process of being edited, proofread, preparation for publication. So it's just the beginning of a really fun thing to do. When I first started writing, I really didn't expect to publish. I just wrote because the joy of the stories. I would dream these stories and the characters actually at night and get up and that day write them down. Sometimes I started having daydreams about them, and they stayed true to form and true to character, and it was really like they had their own personalities, not something I had to fabricate for them. So that's kind of backwards of the way we're taught to write. We're taught to make a plan and make an outline and design the characters and come up with a storyline. And because I wasn't going to publish, I ignored all that and just did what I wanted to do. Those stories have life, they have heart, they have power, they have passion, they have hidden meanings. One time I was asked to write a story about a specific thing because a publisher was putting out a call for a particular kind of story. I wrote that story and looked at it, and that thing was hollow. I did it the way you normally do, starting with the idea and the theme and the outline. There was no heart, there was no character, there was no depth, and I realized that in my own fumbling way, I'd found my style of writing. And I think that's what happens to so many authors, is maybe they do a successful writing coming from their heart, but then they try to imitate themselves even. It's so important to stay fresh, come from your heart, come for your dreams, and just write what you want to read. The two genres that I'm writing right now are both in the romantic area, but one is sci-fi, and I got really hooked into sci-fi early on. I'm giving away my age, an old Trekkie, and then when I was in college, everything I could lay my hands on that had to do with science fiction I read. It was just a natural evolution to move from science fiction into science fiction romance. But because I'm fairly psychic myself, there's always a bit of the paranormal mixed in. So the first series that I did in the Daguerreonian Chronicles, the Chalice of Cahira, is about a psychic woman from Earth who is rescued at the time of her death. She's been exploited by the government for her psychic gifts and trained as an assassin. She dies actually in the tsunami several years back and is rescued by her two mates, count them, from Daguerreonian sector. The kings are ruling party of the Daguerreonian sector. They're mirror twins, and the reason she ended up with two husbands, I think the reason the story came out that way, is because really there's two aspects to all of us, and particularly for men. In this day and age, we expect them to be sensitive and new age and kind, and their other side, their protective, defensive, providing side, is in denial. So she had to learn to love both brothers, one is a warrior and one is a diplomat, equally in order for their triad to work. And I think that's a good representation. We need to love ourselves and each other for all of our aspects, not just some of them. The second book, the first book I wrote in the Seven Sisters series, the Seven Sisters is actually based on the Lakota story of the White Buffalo Calf woman. And she is earthborn, but actually came from the stars. She's also psychic. and is used by the government as she goes in and finds missing people. And this takes place during the time when the Iraq and Iran had kidnapped our SEALs. And actually, I had someone staying at my house at that time whose son, he's one of my son's friends, his son was in that one of those SEALs. That he wasn't in the ones that got captured, but he was in the one that was off duty at the time. And so somehow the energy of that event carried through into this story, and it became very dynamic and very exciting. And so a Secret Service agent is the hero of that story, and the battle that the two have to go through in order to rescue his brother, who has been captured by the Taliban, and to come to terms with what they are to each other. It makes for a very exciting story. So the thing here that's being pointed out, I think, is that these stories can come from anywhere. If you stick yourself to one genre, you're crippling yourself. If you branch out, let your imagination run wild. Let things that are happening in the world around you that inspire you come through your sleep, come through your storytelling. And that's what keeps the books alive. So it's all well and good to write down your dreams. But there's a long road between having your dreams written down and having a published book in your hand, or an ebook, which are getting more and more popular. So how I walked that walk was, first I wrote them. I didn't consider grammar, I didn't consider spelling, I didn't consider any of those things, because those cripple writing, in my opinion. Give the story first and then massage it into shape. So then I read over it, and I would read back. I've got 4 or 5 stories going at once, believe it or not. And I sit down, I'd read back through what I'd written in one of the stories, and then the rest of the story would start to come to me. But when I'm combing through it, I'm also making corrections, rearranging sentences, changing sequence. I comb through each story numerous times, and then I pull in my editor. My editor and I go through it, changing the grammar, shifting it around, making it more understandable, catching the places where I'm repeating phrases or adjectives or adverbs. And then I send it to my proofreader. And my proofreader goes through for the dots of the I's and the crossing of the T's and the commas and the semicolons and all that fun stuff, and gets it back. We go through that several times, and then we do a proof copy. Once we've got the proof copy back, we look at it in hard copy, and you catch stuff there you can't any other way. Then it's time to make a decision. Do you send this in as a manuscript to different publishers in the genre? You have about a 5% chance of being picked up by one, but if you really believe in what you're doing, that's a great way to go. Because if you can get it picked up, they do all the advertising, they walk you through it. If, however, you have a story that you've put out there and it's been turned down and you really feel like it's a really good story, now we have the option of self-publishing. If you're going to self-publish, make sure that you have gone through that manuscript with a fine-tooth comb and that it's well prepared for publication. These are things that you can hire online in various places to have someone do for you. But there's nothing that turns people off faster than a poorly written good story. It actually turns people off rather than a well-written poor story. At the end of the story they go, well, that was kind of boring, but at least they read the story. But if people have to wade through a whole bunch of mistakes in grammar and spelling and punctuation, oftentimes they won't. So taking that time to really polish your dream is the key to success. I think one of the most difficult things about being an author is facing rejection. There's only 5% of books that are picked up by publishers, some more, some less, but that's a good ballpark figure. That being the case, 95% of the things that cross their desk either get sent back for revision or rejected altogether. After about 4 or 5 of those, if it even takes that long, you can become very discouraged. And what I find the key to that is the only people that really succeed are the ones that are extremely tenacious, number one. Number 2 is you have to believe in your book and let it go. If you stay too attached to it as far as part of your self-worth, you're not going to be able to get beyond the rejection. You're not going to be able to have the courage to open up and free flow write again. You're going to try to do it like you think is going to be accepted so you don't have to feel rejected. That's an inside job. They aren't rejecting you. It just isn't the book for their genre at that time. If they give you criticism, that's a blessing, an absolute blessing, because if a publisher will take time to criticize your work, even in a rejection, they're giving you the keys because they think that you have the potential to make something they can't accept down the road. So my best advice is right from your heart, and then let it go. And let it go into the world, and let it be picked up or not. It doesn't matter. It's been written. It's out there. You've done it. It's yours. I would really love it if you were able to read my books. Like I said, the first one is book 1 in the Daguerreonian Chronicles, The Chalice of Kari, and the other one is the first book in the Seven Sisters series, The Long Dark Night. You can find them on Amazon.com. You can find them on my website, CahiraO'Donnell.com, CahiraO'Donnell.com. I'd love it if you could read it. Love to hear from my readers. Hey, why don't you write your own too? Keep writing.